Welcome to Harness the Shift, the podcast where I spotlight souls shaping a new humanity. I am Jay, a neurosomatic strategist bringing lived experience and practical insight to help listeners see new perspectives and navigate their own paths. I interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and co-creators and change makers, those who have stepped into their healing journeys and are sharing their experiences and perspectives to inspire others on their path of self-discovery and transformation. During these conversations, my guests share how you can connect with them, and all their details are in the podcast description. Now let's take a moment to meet our guests for today. Hello, you beautiful souls. Welcome back to Harness the Shift, a space for presence, depth, and inner transformation. I'm your host, Jay, and today I'm honored to bring a deeply meaningful conversation with my guest, Alex Pujol. Alex is the founder of Quantum Human Performance, where he guides individuals and athletes to cultivate resilience, coherence, and embodied presence through breath-based practices, mindfulness, and holistic performance tools. He's also the author of Spectrum, a galvanizing journey from breakdown to breakthrough, a memoir that weaves personal vulnerability with insight into transformation and healing. Before we begin, I would like to share a quick note. During our conversation, Alex mentions the breath of God and uses the name Yeshua when he meant Yahweh. Alex asks that I include this for clarification so you have a full context as we engage with discussion. This episode is grounded, honest, and tender, so let's dive in with Alex Pujol. Hello. So everybody, today's conversation is about journey, alignment, and what it really takes to unlock your potential. So help me welcome my guest today, Alex Pujol.
Hey, thank you very much.
How are you, Alex?
I am doing really well today. Doing really well.
Good.
Thank you very much for having me on.
All the way from Florida. Where in Florida exactly?
So I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. So the tucked away in the top northeast corner.
Yes. I love Jacksonville.
It's a beautiful city because it's a big city by capita, but it still has a small town feel.
Yes. Yeah, I've 23 years in clinical research. I lived in Florida for about 9 years. And so I had several sites in Jacksonville. So went to Jacksonville a lot. Yeah. And you're not too far from St. Augustine as well, which is beautiful. Yeah, beautiful area.
Yeah, so historic.
Such a nice town. So, Alex, take us back to the beginning. And what first inspired you to build Quantum Human Performance?
Yeah, so I would say that this has been such divine revelation because I was a physician assistant for 25 years and I practiced chronic pain management. Unfortunately, through the years, it got harder and harder to practice medicine, mainly because it was getting harder and harder to connect with clients because of time elements. We were, when I first started my career, I was seeing anywhere between 20, maybe 22 patients a day. Towards the tail end, I was seeing 35 to 40, 42 patients a day. And so the time span that I would have with them was just not sufficient to create the level of connection, which I've always thrived on as a practitioner. So during that time, the opioid crisis had hit and everybody was running for the hills in pain management, trying to figure out ways to treat clients' pain alternatively. And so the state had required that we start to offer alternative medicine like meditation, yoga, breath work. And so before I could recommend it to my clients, I had to learn to practice it myself. So Quantum was born following an epigenetics conference that I went to. So it was my first exposure to holistic strategies as far as improving health. My brother coaches college basketball at the University of North Alabama. And so he was in town for an ASUN meeting and we were sitting out back on my back porch and I was telling him how excited I was about shifting away from traditional medicine and starting a new business to help people with holistic strategies to improve their health. And he asked me, can you do this for my team? And so that's where quantum really got born, because I started working with Division I athletes, college basketball athletes, and I experienced such an invigorating time with them because they're pursuing their dreams. Like they're after it. And they've been in this case, basketball for 20 years, working and working and working, trying to get to the next level. And so I was able to work with a couple of the athletes on there that have fully bought into my system. And one particular athlete went from the eighth, ninth guy on the bench to the second leading scorer on the team the following year. And that was over just a 6-month period that we worked together.
Wow.
Now, at the time, I was doing the work for free because I was just trying to help my brother out because he didn't have much of a budget.
Right.
And the level of fulfillment that I got from that work started to make me feel somewhat misaligned with what I was doing in clinical practice. And so that's how quantum was born. It was born by chance and by divine guidance.
That is so amazing. Being originally trained as a medical professional, what made, I mean, I know you talked a little bit about it, but what made you shift from treating symptoms to guiding performance and flow? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so great question. So treating symptoms is what we're trained to do. We're trained to be reactive in medicine. So it's funny, we call it healthcare, but the term sick care gets tossed around a lot these days because it's really more indicative of what happens in the system. And there's nothing wrong with the system. The system is an incredible system as far as saving lives. It's great in the surgical realm. It's great in emergency care. But when it comes to chronic disease, we're suffering an epidemic all over the world, but particularly in our country because we're so focused on treating symptoms rather than the root cause. And that's where things became fascinating for me because a lot of what I started to notice was the work that I was leaning more towards was, yes, I was doing breath work. Yes, I was talking sleep optimization, habit redesign. I was talking nutrition. But what I started to see the best gains was people learning to manage their mind and emotions and being able to regulate emotions so that they could stay in a rational space and they could, whenever a mistake happened, they weren't stuck in the mistake. From a performance standpoint, that's huge, especially at that level, because the game is happening so fast. And so where I really started to see the misalignment was I was treating symptoms, but I wasn't getting to the root cause with these clients. And it became harder and harder and harder to practice that medicine because I felt like I wasn't following what my spirit was guiding me towards.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of folks are starting to make that shift where they've been doing things that don't feel aligned and now they're stepping into their purposes. And it really, it is such a beautiful thing to see and to observe. It truly is.
I agree totally.
Yeah.
I agree from the perspective too that the other part about Western medicine that's difficult is that it's gotten colder because of the time constraints. We don't
Yes.
have the ability to connect. And one of the research points that I've made in this 7-year journey has been with a hormone called oxytocin. And I
Yes.
talk about it a ton because it's our pro-social bonding hormone, but it turns out to be a regenerative hormone. So it helps to regenerate cardiac tissue. It helps to regenerate muscular tissue, tendinous tissue. And so it's like something that we all need. And Western medicine doesn't align with that because you have to be moving. You've got to resolve the problem and just keep turning the next
Right.
patient, turning the next patient. Whereas when we have moments like these where we can actually have shared connection, that boosts that hormone within us. And so it's such a beautiful part of it.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know this at being a practitioner that you talk about sick care, right? The chronic disease, this epidemic that we have. And I think a lot of folks are just exhausted because they've been in survival mode and this exhaustion and this energy and the pressure of, delivering and all of that. So you talk about helping people move from that state, right, to peace, it
Yes.
seems, right?
Yeah.
So, what does that transformation look like in a real person's life?
Yeah. So in most cases, we acclimate to a particular emotional homeostatic set point. So we have a balance point. We can take on a whole lot and we can fire at that level for a long time. But the development of chronic disease occurs in most cases because we have elevated levels of adrenaline and cortisol on a chronic basis. And those are the stress hormones that are causing vasoconstriction and preventing good blood flow to get to parts of the body that need it. And so when I receive my clients that, let's say, are in a burnout place, first thing that I do is I try to get them to see that where they're operating, yes, it works for them, but optimally, they have to find periods of rest in between to give that nervous system a chance to recover. And when we're talking recovery, here's the funny part, is the majority of what we're suffering with nowadays is cognitive load issues. It's not physical exertion. It's how much we're putting in our minds to have to process, how much we have to keep up with, how much of the digital consumption is impacting our nervous system and keeping it at a very stimulated level that creates this disharmonious inside where your body and mind are just they're fragmented. They're not speaking coherently. And so what it looks like is I bring clients, depending upon their pain point, I bring them through a series of holistic strategies that are designed personally for them to get them to a place where they start to feel, and that's the whole thing. They're not thinking their way here, they're feeling their way to a place of peace. I'm batting 1,000 with the clients that I've gotten to work with because they begin to identify with a feeling. It's not a thinking place. It's not another cognitive load that they have to take on.
Right.
It's more about them slowing down long enough to create the awareness gap that allows them then to actually speed up.
Yeah.
So they get more out of life because they find balance.
So just real quick, talk about what are some of the symptoms, the signs and symptoms that you would have if you had this overload, right? Like your cortisol's high, all of this. You can take a blood test for cortisol, but how do people feel? Because what you're describing is you're coming back into the body, you're being aware of what's going on in the body. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so when you describe high levels of cortisol, you're looking at folks that are having trouble sleeping, their challenges with insomnia, they're having problems with irritability, mood swings, they're having problems concentrating and focusing. Sometimes they're experiencing pain throughout the body, diffuse pain that they can't explain. They can experience things as bad as paranoia. In my case, psychosis from very elevated levels of cortisol that occurred to me 4 years ago because I was taking on too much. And so that's the problem, is that we hit this overstimulated state and we think this is the norm and we have to keep pushing when in essence, we're ignoring what our body's been trying to tell us. And that's slow down long enough for me to recover.
Yeah, I think there's this misconception, and I think it's a conditioning that we do have, especially here in America, where it's, push, drive, that mentality of if you push more, you're going to get there faster. And it's really not the case. The case is that you have to come back into the body and flow, right? And really just and it is the hardest thing because I was planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
In my job, I was flying to the West Coast and spending half the time out there a month. So 2 weeks out on the West Coast and 2 weeks back on the East Coast, and I'm flying back and forth, right? So you have all of these flying, just that affects your body too, right? Like
Your sleep
all
cycle.
those the partial pressures, all of that, it affects your body. So it's like that's just another layer of. So my nervous system was fried. So I understand what you're talking about as far as that high cortisol, because I look back at it and I was like, I think I did have a little period of time where I started on my journey awakening, and I was in that psychosis where it was like, and so now I really just pay attention And that, I think that's really what it is paying attention to your body. And when you need to rest, you have to rest. We're not machines, you know? So the quantum human performance programs that I did a little research on your website,
Okay.
and I'm going to put your website up now because I want folks to see your website. But the quantum human performance programs, they blend ancient wisdom and modern science. What are the traditions and insights that shaped this integration into your
Oh my
coaching
God.
program?
What a great question.
I love the ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. And you learn so much, right? There's so much out there. And it's like, it truly is that seek and you shall find. It's out there.
That's a great
Seek
quote.
and you shall find.
Well, the truth is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've been
Oh,
humans for a very long time, and human problems, sure, the variables have changed. Modern times are different, but emotions, the things that we feel, are the same. The variables that are causing them might be different, but we still all feel guilt. We all still feel shame. We all still feel worry. We all still feel anxiety. We all feel these things. And why should we have to reinvent the wheel? Why don't we look back in a time, in the times of, let's say, the Stoics, Marcus, where he talked all about this? He was one of the most powerful men of all time. And he found a philosophy that worked for him because it did things like negative visualization. So I use this in my programs a lot, where I tell guys, listen, I want you think you're not happy with your coach right now. I want you to imagine in your visualization today the absence of your coach, not as death, just as absence. How would that impact your life negatively if you didn't have him around? How would it be with your parents when you're complaining about your parents and things like that? So that what ends up happening, and this is what the Stoics figured out, is when they did that, they grew in gratitude and appreciation for the people in their lives. So it's like, if this isn't a time that needs gratitude and appreciation, I don't know what is. Like that's such gratitude is the mother of all virtues, they say. Because if we're grateful, we can't live in fear at the same time. It's impossible in the brain. So ancient wisdom, yoga philosophy is another place that I tapped into in terms of the chakras, because it really does explain the struggles that we can experience in the lower chakras, in the sacral, which is all about safety, in the in the root, which is all about safety, in the sacral, which is all about desire, the desire to accomplish, in the solar plexus, which is all about identity. And I use that within coaching philosophy a lot to get guys to understand that they're more than their roles. They're a human being, a whole being, not just the identity of the athlete. And so I try to get them to understand that that's where fear lives. All of it lives down in those lower chakras. And where we want to get you is to the heart, where you are loving and enjoying your sport again, like you did when you were a kid. And that's really what happens to us as we transition into adults. We forget that we were children once and everything fascinated us.
yes.
Simple things in life, the things that we take for granted every day. These are all things that aren't distinct to modern society. These are things that have generationally, through civilizations, we've explored and realized. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can use our history in such a positive way today to help us move towards a place of better performance, not just in our professional lives, but in our family lives,
Yes.
in our friend lives, in our exchange with one another, so that we can have a better society.
Absolutely. So with regard to, I know you talk about meditation and mindfulness, and I always say that. I think that's the key to everything is when you can master mindfulness and gratitude, it changes your life. And um you know it's funny because some folks will be like, you how do you meditate? I can't do that. I'm like, well, first of all, if you tell yourself you can't, that's the wrong mindset going into it. It's doesn't have to be. You start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes, sit in the stillness. There's a lot of clarity that can come from that practice, right? Of meditating. So talk to me about how you integrate that into your coaching, because I mean, I just said it. I think it's the key, right? It is. I think if every human could just be mindful and, well, first of all, turn the digital detox, turn it off. Like we're too
That's where it has to start.
right. That's the key, is to limit what we're taking in, because, and we were talking about this backstage where we were talking about social media dilemma, right? With the constant distraction, the constant stimulation. And so talk a little bit about that. Talk about like the basics of where we build from that mindfulness, and then everything else falls into place. Because if you can't be in the present and mindful, breath work's not going to work, right? Because breath work is part of that. It's like
Correct.
that's the path. So talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Yeah. So you're touching upon why it is I really chose to go down the road of holistic strategies and look at a person as a human being, because the way that I look at it, and if you look at my website, it separates body, mind, and then spirit. And when I talk about spirit, I'm talking about our ability to flow with the present moment, to fully unite and bond with the present moment. So meditation, and this is where it gets a little complicated, because people think that what you're supposed to do when you meditate is clear your mind. And yes, that is a product of meditation, but the truth of meditation is to just sit with the feelings of your body, with the sensations, because the Buddhists say thinking is the sixth sense. So we have sight, we have sound, we have smell, we have taste, we have touch. So physical sensations, to be able to anchor yourself into just a full diaphragm breath. And that's where I get started with every one of my clients, because most of them are breathing into their chest. Because we're such a hyper-stimulated society, the majority of us tend to go very shallow with our breath, and either go shallow or we hold it when stress hits. And so when you practice daily, and that's crucial because you want to have that diaphragm and connection when stress hits, because you're going to forget when stress gets you, and you're going to go straight to what's habitual. So if you practice it daily, then you anchor yourself into getting a full diaphragm breath. And the beauty of that in a mindful setting is that you're getting your best air exchange. So you're getting the most amount of oxygen into the system, most amount of carbon dioxide out of the system. And the second part's much more crucial for most of us, because it's carbon dioxide that stimulates the amygdala, which is our threat detection center, and it throws it into hyper stress. And that's where we start to release more adrenaline, more cortisol. But if you can be with that moment, that stress hits, and your perception doesn't go south for the winter, and instead stays present with it, no matter how it feels, and you take a deep breath in, you can start to soothe your nervous system and prevent that hyper stress response to occur. So now, that's the beauty of anchoring into the breath. But mindfulness and meditation have so many more benefits.
Oh, I'm telling you.
For me, it's my best way to connect with God.
Mm.
And again, we all have a different framework for God in our minds, and I respect everybody's framework. But the way that I view it is that this is my time to be with, made all of this possible for me. To be able to like sit in gratitude and just breathe the breath with him. Because that's if you actually look at the translation of Yeshua in Hebrew, it's actually breath. And so when they say that God is omnipresent and omnipowerful, it's like, yeah, because without the breath, we can't survive more than 3 minutes. And so to sit in meditation is to sit with God. And that is spirit to spirit talking. So then where I'm able to communicate, and I love that you had that reaction, because there's so much power there.
There is so much power in it. And when you said that, like because I meditate, and it's so true. And when you said that, I just got chills all over my body, because to sit with it's like I say, sit with the Creator and breathe in the breath of God, right?
Yes.
because you're right. If you don't breathe, you die.
In
And
3 minutes.
we have to connect to that breath, not just in our chest, in the full belly, right? Yeah,
It's like
I resonated with that.
so great. Thank you. And just this came to mind. We savor food.
Yeah,
The way that I've learned to breathe in meditation is to savor the breath. Like to take as slow an inhale as I possibly can. I'm not in a hurry to do it. There's no reason, there's nowhere to go. This is literally 10 to 12 minutes of my morning. That's it, just 10 to 12 minutes. And I'm just going to sit and breathe. And I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to connect with God. I'm going to do what I want to visualize for the day. I'm going to engage in utilizing my mind as I'm breathing, but I'm utilizing it in a way that's going to be very beneficial for me. So what I identify with in that moment is the spiritual component of my being, because then there's also a physical component of my being, and I can direct my attention to any physical sensation in my body. And that's the beauty of having a human experience, is we have these physical senses. And so to be able to take our focus and know that we have the power to focus on God or focus on our physical body, and more importantly, to focus on our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts. Now you're starting to see the real power of meditation, because it's all about attention training. It's all about being able to focus your attention where you want to direct it. And that begins to shape the reality that you're looking for in life, because you're no longer then the backseat driver in the car. You're now the driver of the car. Now you're making the choices with your free will, because you know you're the spirit. You're not the physical body. You're not the thoughts. You're not the emotions. These are just things you experience in life.
yeah,
They're not who you are. They don't define you. You're limitless when it comes to being the spirit.
yes.
There's there's endless possibilities.
Absolutely. And it's like so cool because you have God as your navigator,
It's a
which is
co-creator.
so
Like you could,
cool.
yes.
It's like
That's
you connect with your inner guidance system, and it's limitless, and you have the ability to really change your life in ways that you would never imagine. And it just takes a little bit of discipline and a little bit of harnessing that shift in consciousness and change of mindset too, because that's part of it, right? So now I know with quantum human performance, you have 3 modules. So what is the most common thing that you hear from someone who completes all 3 of the modules?
so they gain a greater understanding for what it means to be human.
I love
Like
that.
that's probably the resounding response that I've gotten, is they thought they knew who they were, and once they're completed with my coaching experience, they feel now that they're in more control of their life than they ever have been. And most of them come in thinking they're controlling their lives pretty good. I mean, they're high performing athletes or CEOs or business owners. And so they didn't get there because they're lazy. They got there because they're high performers and they've controlled their environment to that point. But it's that need for control that causes them to end up in this state of burnout that I know very intimately. That now, because I live perceptually the way that I do, I've learned it's not about what I do or how I perform, it's how I show up. And so one of the coaching philosophies that I talk about all the time is the only things that you can truly control in life are your energy and your effort in the moment. You can't control the variables around you, meaning the people that come into your life. No, these are the challenges that life offers you. But if you manage your energy and your effort, that's so little to have to be responsible for.
It
So I
truly
don't have,
is.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it truly is. That when you said that, I was like, yes. Say that again, because I interrupted you and I didn't mean to do that.
No, it's okay. Thank you. I tell clients this all the time. This is a major coaching philosophy. Just be responsible for your energy and your effort. And again, when you think about the way the human mind has been conditioned, fear-based conditioning, we're human prediction. Our brains are prediction machines. So when I first introduce this concept, it takes a while for it to become integrated into the system. So it's something that I repeat over and over again as they hit life and life hits them back. I tell them, okay, here's another example of you focusing on outcomes, looking towards the future, trying to grasp control when all you have to truly control is your energy and your effort. Are you giving 100% today? Are you coming with your best energy? Whatever that might be. Some days it's great. Some days maybe it's not so great. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe you didn't eat the right thing. Maybe you got sick. So your energy is not always going to be the best, but it's the best that you can possibly produce that day. And if your effort is your best effort, how did you go wrong today? And that's where most people end up. Whenever they feel they failed, they feel they have this fear like they're not going to be enough. It's because they're trying to control something outside of energy and effort. And so in my coaching philosophy, I try to simplify things so that the framework is received in a way that then it can be practiced on a regular basis. And it's that confidence building that starts to happen where now you're not looking at your performance or your outcomes to build confidence. Now you're building belief in yourself because you know all you have to do is bring your best energy and your best effort to the day.
It sounds pretty simple, huh?
It's simple, but it's, again, I always say this. It's a simple concept, but a challenging action because we're not geared to that.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm sorry, but I was going to say, that's why I have my clients. This is usually going to be anywhere between if you're really a high performer, anywhere between a 3 to 6 month period. This is not going to be overnight. It's not a light switch.
No, it's not.
You're going from thinking to feeling. So it's becoming a much more intuitive experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you help people move beyond just the physical optimization into the deeper mental and spiritual coherence?
So it depends on the client, but a lot of what I like to do is tap into, again, ancient wisdom or modern day philosophers. And so when I talk mind, the person that comes to mind immediately is Michael Singer. He's the author of The Untethered Soul, and he is sort of a model to which I use as guidance to understand the most important component is your inner voice. So every one of us has an inner voice. And I say this to all the clients that I work with, and if you just heard within your own head, I don't have an inner voice, that's the voice I'm talking about. Because most people will say, what is he talking about? I don't have an inner voice when I first introduce the concept. And I say to you, and I say to everybody that I work with, we all have a narrator inside. And that narrator is our sense of self. And so that's in neuroscientific terms, that's represented as the default mode network. It's the part of us that's concerned about ourselves in the world, how we fit into our world, how we relate with others, how we relate to ourselves. And so this thing is constantly narrating our life. And so where I get people to understand and ground is that is the mind component of their existence, but not their spirit. Because the mind is a record keeper of time. So it literally has compiled your whole past. And that's where it's getting its information from in order to predict the future. So when we get anxious thoughts, it's coming from that part of us that's collected our lifetime. It only has that to reference. It doesn't have all of life to reference, the whole gray of life. It only has the black and white incidences that we remember, and it's also tainted because it's tainted by biases like confirmation bias and negativity bias. And so what we end up retaining in our minds that we utilize to try to predict the future is usually Swiss cheese. And so I try to get guys to understand that what they're relying on in the moment, particularly let's say golfers, which is who I'm predominantly working with now, what they're relying on whenever they make a mistake is past mistakes. So they're adulterating the present moment with something that isn't truly there anymore. And that's the component where I start to get guys out of their physical body, where we talk about, like I said, habit redesign, sleep optimization, nutrition, breath work. We get their bodies tuned up and they get a program going there, but then the mind is more about them understanding how the mind relates to the spirit, because the spirit is the one witnessing consciousness in the moment. And it's utilizing mind to try to predict the future, or it can use mind to discern the moment. And that's the component that becomes the complexity of understanding, because we're present when we're thinking about the past. We're present when we're thinking about the future, but we're allocating resources away from the present moment when we're doing that. So we're not as energy efficient when we're thinking about the past or the future. So that takes away from the skill that's being performed, whatever that may be. In your case, it was clinical research. In my case, it was practicing medicine. If I was thinking about the future, what I was going to make for dinner that night, I wasn't with my patient 100%.
Yeah.
And so that's what I end up seeing is mind creates this allocation of resources that can become much more efficient, which is what my process does.
Amazing. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. So people describe flow as time distortion and effortlessness and hyperfocus. How have you personally experienced flow in your life?
I'm experiencing it right now with you. You're a great host.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you're a great host. You were asking some incredibly pertinent questions.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah. Flow is where action merges with awareness. That's the actual definition. So we're taking action. So that's number one. People, if you're not taking action, you're not in flow. Now, inaction is also an action.
Yes.
So that's where it can get a little confusing. It's not that you have to always do something in order to be in flow. You can be in a bath and be in flow. Because the pure definition of flow is to be fully present in the moment, which is the objective of mindfulness. It's to be fully present in the moment as if your life depended on it. John Kabat-Zinn defined it that way. So the way that I view it is that flow is truly translated into just being fully present in the moment, meaning you don't have a worry about tomorrow because all you have is this moment. And now, again, simple concept, challenging action. It's a practice. You're not going to get it right, which is where people end up giving up on things like meditation because they think they're supposed to be A+ students right away. Just because we're good at one skill doesn't mean that we're going to be great at every skill in life. I can't play the piano. But if I started today, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, I'm playing the piano well enough. Meditation's the same way. In order for one to learn what it feels like to be fully present in the moment, you've got to practice. And that's one of the things that I tell the clients that I work with. I said, listen, this is all great. I can show you the studies, the scientific studies that prove that all this stuff works. But if you don't practice it, you're just paying me because you want to have an interaction with me. It's not because you're truly wanting to get better. And so to be in flow is to understand that the only thing that truly matters is this moment. Nothing else matters.
Absolutely.
No sense of self. That's the other thing that drops off. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but the other thing that drops off is you do get timelessness. You get this time distortion, but you also, one of the definitions and one of the things that's been defined by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is the father of flow, is you lose your sense of self. And that's huge for people to understand because we're in a society where everybody is concerned about themselves. The number one picture that's taken is a selfie. And when you think about it in those terms, how can you fully be in flow if you're not in service to others, if you're not in collaboration with others? You can't, because you're in your sense of self, which means you're in your default mode network in this imaginary being that you've created, which honestly was created when we were all young, in order to learn how to fit into society. But it's not who we are. It's just a fragment of who we are. And so that part of it is really the intellectual pursuit that I enjoy so much, is getting guys to see the body part first, then have them understand how their mind works, only for them to understand the Holy Grail, which is, well,
Yeah. I think we've been so conditioned that we have to do everything by ourselves. And that's where that whole concept of being all about the self and not looking up and seeing the world, right? And co-creating with folks. And so that's the whole purpose of this podcast, right? Is that I can't possibly know everything. Just like you, I don't play the piano. I do want to learn how to play the guitar, but I have to integrate, practicing that, just like with meditation. Yeah. It's this journey it's interesting. I think when you start to really be in the present, you start to see the beauty of life. You start to be able to observe other folks and challenge those folks that are like this. Like, hello, how are you today? And engaging that, right? That to me is a part of that co-creation, right? Like, hey, I see you.
yeah,
And
it's just to your point on that, engaging. Because what I've come to learn is that I'm not here to teach anyone anything. I'm here to just show up again, best energy, best effort. And I create a resonance that way, a frequency. It's a peaceful frequency. And I'm around people and I see how it starts to impact them when I'm this way. Because I wasn't always this way. I was disharmonious before. And again, 4 years ago, I literally ended up in a place that was very disharmonious. It's the darkest place I've ever been in my life. But it's a place that I would say was a springboard for me because I've shot like a rocket from it. Because I've realized like the gift is life. And so all I want is for, and I tell my brothers all the time, I said, all I want is for people to feel what I feel inside because it's love. I love myself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way or in a way that's narcissistic or anything like that. I love myself in the sense that I appreciate everything that I've done to get to this point, and I can only imagine what I'm going to do from this point forward. Because I have this inner peace that I just want to share with everybody. But what I don't do now that I used to try to do as a practitioner is I would try to change them. And what I've learned is that I can't change anybody that's not ready to change for themselves. So I'm just with people. And like you say, I engage with them, but I don't try to influence them in any way, shape, or form. I just show up. And
right.
if they're ready to receive, they align with it. And once they do, they start asking questions, which is great. And that's all I could ever ask for.
Yeah. I always say that you just drop that seed, right?
Yes.
And then it's like that curiosity. And I often say this, like we should always be open, ready to receive any and all information, but also have that curiosity. And when we do, we can learn so much. Like I've learned a lot from you today. Like everyone that I've been interviewing, I'm just like, this is so amazing. And this whole concept of this podcast is because I listened to the spirit. Spirit said podcast, and the spirit doesn't talk in sentences. It talks like, a broken up transmission. Podcast, get guests. Okay, spirit gotcha. Loud and clear. So, when you, and I think that's what's so important about the whole concept of mindfulness is that when we are mindful, we can hear that signal. When we're in the flow and we're in the frequency of our creator, we can hear that transmission come through and understand it, not have to
100%.
dissect it. But no, I truly honor you for, you know, that is a hard thing when you're in the darkest moments of your life. And I've been there. I've had a lot of loss in my life. And I think going through this spiritual awakening after my father passed away in 18 and, you know, sifting through everything and deconstructing everything and all the programming and all of that, it is a hard thing. to do. And it's a brave thing to do. So I honor you for not giving up on yourself and for pushing through in a spiritual sense. When I say push through, it's like staying on that frequency, knowing that you're supported by your creator in that process. It's such an amazing thing. And it's like, now look, it's a testimony that when you do stay on in the flow, that things start to happen. And when they happen, when you look back, 4 years that's not a long time.
No, no.
So
And
it's
again,
like,
I know I didn't share it with your listeners, but on March 23rd, 2022, I tried to commit suicide. And the reason why I did that was because I had gotten to a place of utter misalignment and I had fallen away in isolation from God. I know that. I was living a lifestyle that was not congruent with spirit. And in those moments, because I sat in a tub for 11 hours and I had nothing but a life review during that time. And a lot of things came to mind. There was just God in the end. Like he literally, there was, again, it's a near death experience is the way that I view it, because there was a light, there was a honey colored light that expanded right next to me. And this warmth and this love and this sense within me that I can feel it now, but I couldn't describe it like in words because it'll fall short of what it felt like. And then it was the images of all the people that I love, my children, my mom, my brother, my family, my nieces, everybody that was close to me, close friends, my friend Brett, my friend Rob, like they all came to mind. And I felt, because I didn't hear it audibly, but I felt this energy that came within me and said, you've got to get out. You've got to make the call. And my life since then, like, again, I went through rehab. I went through intense psychotherapy to sort of figure out what caused all of it. And that's probably another podcast on its own. But just so that your listeners understand, that was rock bottom. And in 4 years, like you say, it's not a long time. I'm in a place where I'm so connected to God now. And it's something that I'm so happy to share with as many people as possible, because all I want is for people to understand that this connection is available to each one of us at all times.
oh,
We just have to turn to him. That's it. We're never alone.
no.
Like, we're never alone. We're always guided. We're always held. And it's beautiful to have moments like this that I can share this story, because I just want to try to inspire as many people to look up.
Yeah. And you know what? You've inspired me because, I too, and I don't think I've ever shared that. So, I've had a lot of loss. I lost my mom when I was in 99, my sister-in-law's mother in 13, an ex in 17, my father in 18, grandparents and all of that. So a lot of loss and a lot of grief. So I'm very familiar with death. And I understand that, that is one thing that's guaranteed. We are born and then we die from this meat suit. But do we really die? And I've learned that we transcend because we're energy. Energy doesn't cease to exist, right? And so, yeah, I've struggled with alcohol abuse and, the traveling, with work and whatnot, and trying to cope with that, and coping with my father's ailing health, and the codependency with the brothers and my father after my mother passed. That's a huge thing when you lose your mother figure, the person that brought you into this life. And so I too have been in that situation, but I've always had that connection with God. Like, God has never left my side. And I was in the garage and I had come back from a night of drinking and I was not in a good place. And all it would take would be to hit that garage door button, and something came into it was like a download. It was like, call Julie. So I called my friend Julie and she talked me off the ledge. And, you know, I have so much compassion for folks that go in these dark places, you know, through life. And some don't make it out, you know, some are very successful. So yeah, I resonate with what you're saying. We can't save anyone. People have to kind of meet halfway. I think it's just so important for us to cultivate that love for ourselves and also compassion, right? And withholding judgment, because, you know, this thing called life is hard sometimes. It's not easy. And this journey, like peeling yourself apart, is not easy. And, you know, I'm grateful that you weren't successful. And I'm grateful that I wasn't successful, because we wouldn't be sitting here today and
That's right.
having this amazing conversation. And I appreciate your vulnerability, and you inspired me to be vulnerable as well. And I think that the future, you know, of this podcast, I mean, I'm so excited about it, because I know that it's going to cultivate this spirit of co-creation. And, you know, I shared with you that I want to do these nervous system reset retreats where it's an immersion in nature, and you just, you know, check out for like, you know, 5 days and just immerse yourself in all of this. And, you know, that's coming in the future. But
Awesome.
no, I thoroughly have enjoyed our conversation together today. And so one last question I want to ask you.
Well, first off, if you don't mind me interrupting
Sure,
you,
sure.
I honor you for having the courage to call your friend.
Thank you.
That takes a lot, because for one to be in that moment, it's like you said, it's not hard to press the button. So
Yeah,
I honor you for having the courage to call her, and again, kudos to her for helping you through that.
yeah. And
All
she,
it takes, they say, all it takes is 8 minutes. 8 minutes to listen to someone, and you can change their life.
absolutely. And I think that's where compassion comes in, right? I mean, she could have judged me and said, you know, but she was like, let's talk, you know. And I truly, you know, I've told her many of times. I'm giving a shout out to my friend Julie Garand. She's, I think nowadays she's in Cocoa Beach, I think. So
Awesome.
right
Not very
down,
far from me.
right down the road from you. But she's a beautiful soul, and she saved my life that night. She truly did, and I'm grateful. So yeah, I think if anyone's listening, if you're ever in that situation, pick up the phone. We're on this thing all the time, and we do get into dark places. Because life sometimes is not easy, and that's the realization. Think there, you know, I observe a lot of this spiritual bypassing and this surface level positivity that, you know, this work is, it's serious work. It's not something that's easy. And I think we have to be honest and upfront about that
Absolutely.
it's not easy. But when you have the support, and this is why coaching is so cool, and this is why like, if I've had a coach this entire time, like during my whole awakening, right? I've had several, you know, that we just kind of bound, and it has nothing to do with money, but we all have, you know, we all have that wisdom, right? That we've gained. And so having a coach is it's such a, I think it's something important. I
Yeah,
think it's something
it's a
very, very
blessing.
important,
Yeah.
because we can't do this by ourselves. And the Spirit of God is calling us.
Yeah.
And it's like, pick it up, pick the call up, and know that you're supported out here, because people are stepping into their purpose. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I honor you as well. It's an amazing journey, right? I look back and I'm like, damn.
How?
Damn, girl.
At times I wonder how.
I know. I'm like, damn, girl, you are a badass. You've
That's
done
right.
this. Like,
That's right.
and I gotta tell you, like, I've been up against the ropes, but I've also I've gotten that alcohol abuse under control, right? Like, in 19, I went cold turkey for uh, a long time. And, every now and again, I'll enjoy a beer. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I don't, um, I don't, um, I don't abuse it. I don't use it to cope with things.
I was just about to say it's
I don't,
not a coping
where I
strategy.
did before. And so, um, and that's the thing. It's easy to abuse it. You get caught
Absolutely.
up in it. You
Absolutely.
get caught up in it. And we have there is a problem with that in our society. We lose every day we lose people to abuse of substances. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a testimony that you're a badass and you made it. Like, you know what I mean? You really did, and you dialed into that inner guidance system that said abort, right? Like, and that's really what it was. That call to her was an action, and it was an action to abort that programming. Like, nope, we're not going there. We're going here. Because so many of us have a calling on our soul
That's
to
right.
step in, to help other people, to guide other people. We've been refined by the fire because we have a purpose, and we have become the pioneers and the mavericks and the renegades of this massive shift in consciousness on this earth. And that's something to hold space for. It's to honor, and it serves as inspiration that the others that are starting to wake up, and they're picking up that call, and they're like, I have no idea what the heck's,
Going on.
it's okay. It's
Yeah. We
okay.
got we
We
got you.
got you, one foot in front of the other, man. We got you. And I think that's the most important thing for me, is that because I have a genuine love for humanity. I really do. And I know I don't want to say all, but most folks, it's just they're hanging on to that. They're hanging on to the fear. They're hanging on to the shame. They're hanging on to the pride. They're hanging on to the programming, the conditioning, and all of this. And they don't even know where to start.
Right. These are ingrained patterns, neuroplastically ingrained. What that means is we're wired over time, over processing, over conditioning, over generations.
Yeah.
These are things that are being handed down in behavior patterns that we identify as us, when in essence they're just behavior patterns that are recorded in the nervous system. And so, like you said, it's not easy to unwind that. And there's going to be all sorts of resistance created within the mind to not unwind it. And so that's what I began to understand, is that I was undergoing an unwinding process, and I created a ton of resistance within my own framework to resist this change, when in essence it's exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
So that's what most people would be up against, is the challenge of understanding that there is a process, and coaching is really a great method to get you to build the bridge to get you to the other side.
Yeah. It truly is. And I don't know what I would, I don't know. I think to myself, like, man, peeling back. And I know that in my journey, I've fought it, resisted it. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, all of that. Like, cause that ego comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and it wants to be in control. And it's like, you just get to a point where it's like, I'm not in control.
No, it's an
And
illusion.
yeah, and it's like, shit. I guess I better surrender to
Yes.
the process. And it's in that moment of surrender that, like, everything comes into coherence, and you're in alignment. And You just focus on being and staying in that alignment.
That's it.
And it's an everyday thing, right? Every single day being
Just like
intentional.
just like we practice being an ego, you
Yes.
practice being present.
Yes.
And little by little, you begin to drift into presence day after day of practicing presence. And like I said, in my opinion, it's a 6-month process at worst if you dedicate daily practice towards it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's an interesting thing. Like something just came to me. Because when the thing is, when you are the more present that you can be, and say you have an interaction with someone and they're projecting onto you, okay? And you're like, I can go there and be the German blooded Jamie, or I can be my true authentic self, which is that loving, patient, and kind person. And so you have that choice, right? Now I kind of call it Jesus flipping the tables, but in a loving and patient and kind way, or being the one that's going to impart wisdom and plant the seed. Because now I'm learning, and I'd say in the last year, is the boundaries thing, right?
Yes.
Which is like,
You mentioned codependency in the midst of this. I'm
yes,
assuming people pleasing may have been a part of your journey.
yes,
I know it was very strong, both of those for me.
yes,
And boundaries was something that I never set. I went with the flow.
right, right,
I went with what, if the pop, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Sure, I'll do that.
right,
Well, what I began to realize was there was nothing left for me, like
right,
nothing of me. Like, what is me? What is my authentic self?
right,
And that's what this process truly has been for me. It's the identification of, no, this is who I am. Like this is, again, you mentioned loving,
yeah,
kind, patient.
right,
This is who I've always been.
right,
It's just I never set boundaries, and so again, I allowed myself to be encircled with people that didn't resonate at my level, and I was trying to rescue, help, however it was. I was sort of justifying this in the framework
yes,
where now, like you mentioned, somebody projects something onto me, and I can be very assertive and telling them, nah, it's not my thing. Like I'm good. I respect you for it, but I'm not. I don't need to do that.
right,
Where before I would just say, yeah, sure, why not?
right,
You start to define these boundaries because these boundaries, they help you stay in the lane. And again, it's a narrow, steep path ascension. It's a daily
yes, it
practice,
is.
and it is going to take work because it's easier to be who you've been.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
harder to become somebody different. And it's not being
absolutely,
somebody different. It's because you're still your same self. It's
right.
just now you're starting to set boundaries, like you're mentioning.
And they do call it the path less traveled for a reason. And the path is narrow for a reason. And yeah, it's interesting. It really is. But yeah, the self-abandonment, that's no longer a thing for the Jamester here. No. When you're not abandoning yourself, you start to see that people come into your orbit that are in the same mindset, right? In that same frequency of self-respect and not abandoning um, themselves. And it's such a cool thing.
I say it all the time. The friends that I have now, I mean, they're just heart-centered, beautiful
Right.
beings.
Yeah.
And it reflects who I've always been. I was trying to be a chameleon in society before, trying to fit in. And I was too worried about everybody else's feelings rather than my own. And so the way that I view it now is, like you said, I created an alignment within that now is attracting the people that have always been meant for me. And it's beautiful.
So I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to ask you. I'm going to pivot here because I want to go on this. If you have someone, like say someone out there is listening, okay, and they're vacillating in this I don't know where to begin. I'm fearful. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to look at those dark spots. What can you tell those folks? Like what would be your best advice for those folks?
So how I start with my coaching when it comes to any sort of emotional work, feeling work, particularly with men who have not been taught how to deal with feelings, emotions. We were taught to always suppress them. You don't talk about that. A man doesn't cry, that sort of thing. I tell them, start with the small stuff. So start with the things that are minor annoyances, things that are talking to your kids with sarcasm. Like, do you really need to do that? Is that really helping them learn anything? Like those sorts of things are behaviors that we develop in time that only create more separation. So what I always say is start with the small stuff, and the small stuff's different for each one of us. It's not getting upset because somebody cuts you off in traffic. Like in the grand scheme of things, maybe that person's in a hurry. Maybe you don't know what's going on in their human condition. Maybe their wife is just, is getting labor. You just don't understand and know. And so it's starting with the small stuff first, because you don't want to start with the Super Bowl of emotions, because again, your nervous system is learning a process. And whenever we learn a new skill, and everything is a trainable skill as a human being, because that's what's allowed us to become top of the food chain, because we adapt, we can learn, we're learning systems. And so we can learn any skill. This is just a skill that we just have to learn, and we have to be patient with ourselves, which is the hard part. We're all so used to black and white. We have to know and have success immediately. Otherwise, we're failures. This path isn't about that. It's not about judgment. That's what got us in this mess, is over-judging everything. We've got to decrease the labels on ourselves, the self-criticism, that inner voice. That's why I talk about that inner voice. You change that inner voice from an inner critic to an inner coach, where you can be assertive with yourself and you stick with the plan, because the biggest consistency is the biggest challenge for most people when it comes to habit redesign. Again, New Year's resolutions are the greatest example. Everybody sets one. By February, 82% are done, because we don't know how to maintain the passion. And that's where I try to get people to understand is you've got to bring love to this, which means understanding, patience. You've got to look at these dark places in your life and look at them with gratitude, because they made you who you are. It's not necessarily that you have to look at yourself with a level of shame. The sense that you kept in your body, that shame, yes, it may surface, but what you have to know about that is that it's an emotion you're supposed to experience so that you can change behavior. And so when it does come up, I wish I would have had a coach at the time, because I had a lot of shame come up for a lot of mistakes that I felt I had made throughout life. And it was that shame that became overwhelming to my mind. And so what I tell people on the path is just be patient with yourself and treat yourself as if you were talking to your best friend, trying to counsel them through some of these challenges, some of these dark places, some of these things that maybe you're not so proud of, because we all have them. That's what makes this human condition so beautiful, is that we all experience all of these emotions. The variables are different, there's no doubt about it, but the emotion is something that we can all share. The other thing I would say is doing it alone. Again, I would say get a coach, or at the very least, get a support group.
Absolutely.
Get into a support group, somebody that you can at least be willing to be vulnerable with, that you can create a trusting network. Because when you do that, you can take that dysregulation in your nervous system, basically calm your nervous system down when you're in group with others that are having that shared experience with you.
Yeah. Hence the reason I want to do
Everything we're made of contains light. From the sun that feeds our world to the energy that flows within us. With LifeWave X39, we've found a way to put that light to work. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHK-Cu, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality. By gently stimulating the skin with light, our non-invasive, non-transdermal X39 patches help you conquer your active lifestyle and pave a new way to vibrant health. Becoming a powerhouse is easier than you think. It all starts with your body and a little help from light. Place one LifeWave X39 patch on the body. Apply the patch to clean, dry skin in the morning. Patches may be worn for up to 12 hours before discarding. Keep well hydrated while using this product. Harness your natural potential. Reclaim youthful energy. Live long, live well, live young with LifeWave X39. Be the light. LifeWave.
Shared experience with you.
Yeah. Hence the reason I want to do retreats.
Yes.
Because there's so much that you can learn, right, from other people and their wisdom. Like we all hold wisdom in our bones, and just navigating through this life, and even wisdom that we haven't really even brought up to the surface. Such an amazing time to be alive.
Yes.
I say this all the time because I'm like, I literally have that gratitude that I'm just like, I'm grateful that although it's been hard, I'm so grateful that I took the path, that I got on the path, and that, and now being on the path, I'm like, no.
Yeah, there's no way I'm getting off this thing.
I'm staying on the path. I got places to go. What's up?
Right.
You know? So, yeah. So I think I might want to ask you one more. Well, we just kind of touched on it. What role does community and support play in accessing flow compared to the solo effort? We talked about it. Coaching, get somebody.
Yes.
And
Yeah, there's no doubt.
so also you have a book, correct?
Yes.
Do you have your book with you?
I do. I got a copy of it.
Yes. Okay, great. So talk to us about what the book is about.
Yeah. So Spectrum, a galvanizing journey, it starts out telling the story of the suicide attempt, but it rapidly proceeds into a book about holistic strategies on how to get yourself from burnout to breakthrough, which is what happened to me. Is that I utilized all of the people that I was able to meet along the way, all of the great healthcare practitioners that cared for me, my therapist, Annette, she's phenomenal. All of the group at IOP, which was just, it was again, a group therapy that I was able to listen to other people and their challenges and how they dealt with emotion, and to see people lash out and be frustrated about the challenges that they faced, and how as a group we could come together and offer solutions and connect. And this book is all about that journey of me learning and understanding how to incorporate, how to go from a completely dysregulated state to a place of peace. And I give a sort of a playbook, a weekly strategy that you can take over 8 weeks, that you can adopt the hardest hitting habits, the ones that I've found to be the most successful habits with any of the clients that I've worked with. And if you stack them under the concept of Atomic Habits, is a great book, but in that book, he talks about habit stacking. And so if you start a habit one week and you're consistent with that habit, then you can start a second habit that following week, and you continue doing this over time. You build a complete shift in the way that your nervous system is responding to your environment. And so the book is my way of trying to give back for all that I've been given, meaning through my years of study, my years of experience, to try to give back, because I can't, as a coach, I can't coach everybody in the world.
Right.
But like I told you early on, I want everybody to feel this level of love and peace within. And so this is my way of starting a series of books. This is the first one that I've written, and I had such a great time writing the book that
That's
I'm
amazing.
looking forward to writing the second book by the end of the year. Yeah.
That is amazing. Awesome. So if someone would like to get the book, where would they go to get the book? Your website?
Yeah. So my website, they can go to my website or Amazon. It's on Amazon as well.
Great, great. Well, and it's called Spectrum.
Spectrum, A Galvanizing Journey.
I like that. I'm just writing it down. I also wrote down this Untethered Soul. I've heard of this book and I haven't written it. I mean, I haven't read it, so I definitely want to check that one out too.
Yeah. And
Um,
just a quick tidbit on the
sure.
author, why I speak about him the way
Yeah.
that I do is he actually lives in Alachua, Florida. So he's just south of where I live near Gainesville.
Wow.
But this is the best part about the guy is he wrote a second book called The Surrender Experiment, and it's all about his life story. And he was a graduate student at Florida and decided to get a van, become a hippie, and learn how to meditate because he couldn't ever quiet his mind. And this guy became so successful, he sold his company, which turns out to be the medical software for billing for all of
Wow.
billing software, and he sold it to WebMD for $5 billion. But this guy is so humble that every Monday and Thursday night, he has a yoga community. Every Monday and Thursday night, he gives free yoga, chanting, meditation, and then he speaks. And I'll tell you, when you read the book, you'll see what I mean. He has a way of condensing the spiritual path for anyone to understand what it takes to make the steps towards living a much more enriching life. And he's just somebody that he's not a guru or anything like that. He's just the guy that I look up to. I think
Yeah.
that he's just a great example of our human potential.
That's amazing. And what's his name again?
Michael Singer.
Michael Singer. And where does he do the yoga and all that?
It's actually called the Temple of the Universe. And what I love about the place, because I grew up religious, what I love about the place is that there's no denomination. He accepts anybody's welcome there.
That's
And I love
amazing.
that because to me, that's what spirituality really is about. Because I think religion, I know it has the greatest of intentions, but it's created separation through time between us. And a place like that offers anybody to come in and be welcome. It doesn't matter where you come from, what color you are, what your beliefs are. So
That's
long as you're
amazing.
coming there peaceful, harmonious, that's all he cares about.
Well, that's so amazing. Well, hey, if you're in that, and where is that? What town?
So it's Alachua. It's
Alachua.
Alachua, Alachua, Florida. So it's just outside of Gainesville.
Oh, I know exactly where that's at. It's north of Gainesville, right? Yeah. There's I'm thinking a medical device company that's there, and I can't remember the name of it that I remember that's in that area. Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's great. His story, he started with 10 acres. He bought 10 acres, and I think something ridiculous, like $5,000 or something like that. And he built this little hut, and it had this big glass window on it. And all he did all day long was meditate in there. And the beauty of his story is that now he owns over 1,000 acres in that area, and he just welcomes anybody to his community. You can literally drive up to his house, no problem. It's just I think there's just something so awesome about his story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just that right there's that's authenticity, absence of fear and patience and loving and kind and understanding, all of those amazing attributes. Wow, that's amazing. I am so grateful that
Hey,
you
same
came
here.
on today. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm definitely you got to come back. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll figure out like a topic to talk about and then come back and we'll just talk about it. It's been an amazing time with you. Thank you so much for holding space for me.
My pleasure.
That
Anytime.
I resonated with your story and I was like, this is something's coming up here. And thank you for being so inspiring so that I could share that. Because I think when we do share, we shed. We do. We shed. And we shed the shame and the guilt and the grief. And that just keeps us It just, when we
That's
shed
right.
all that,
That's right.
because
Yeah.
it doesn't
We, were-
serve
we,
us
were-
at the end of the day.
we, re- we return from where we came from,
Yes.
which was just wonder, love, and curiosity.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Alex.
My
I
pleasure. My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Take care of yourself, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
What an amazing conversation. So I'm going to put up the website one more time for you folks. Go get that book. This was an amazing podcast and so much wisdom. I hope that you can extrapolate what you can from it and use whatever it is and apply it to your life. Until next time, keep harnessing the shift.
Thank you for dialing in and listening to Harness the Shift podcast. I'm Jay, your host. I spent 23 years in clinical research and have now transitioned into guiding leaders, creators, and change makers through coaching and consulting. I also am a brand partner with LifeWave, and more information about the research and this work is available in the Central Hub link in my bio. During these conversations, my guests share how you can connect with them. All their details are in the podcast description. I'd love your help growing this podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. And make sure to subscribe and follow on YouTube, Spotify, and soon Apple Podcasts under Harness the Shift. You can also stay connected with me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Harness the Shift with Jay, and follow my long-form writings on LinkedIn and Substack at Harness the Shift with Jay. The podcast has its own Instagram channel, which is Harness the Shift Podcast. Everything I mention, coaching, retreats, guest info, and offerings is centralized in the Central Hub, Harness the Shift with Jay. Stay rooted in the light. We're all aligned by design, and together we're harnessing the shift.